Hello everyone, I'm Vaidyanathan, and today I'll be talking about a MaxAd-based post-processing algorithm for computing heuristic tree depth. This is joint work with Stefan Zeider. We are a part of the Algorithms and Complexity group at the Technical University of Vienna. So let's look at the basic definition of tree depth first. The tree depth decomposition of a graph is a tree on the nodes of the graph, such that if any two vertices share an edge in the graph, then one is an ancestor of the other in the tree. For example, here is a graph G. Here is one valid tree depth decomposition. As you can see, the black and the blue lines together in tree T1 cover all the edges of the graph G. The blue lines indicate the ancestor-descendant relationship. Here is another tree depth decomposition of the same graph G. So how do you evaluate which of these is better? To do that, we define the depth of a decomposition in terms of the height of the tree T. So the depth of decomposition T1 here is 4 and the depth of decomposition T2 is 3. The tree depth of a graph is then defined in terms of the lowest possible depth over all decompositions. So what is known about the tree depth? There exist methods which can compute the exact tree depth of a graph, one of which is based on Saturn codings, and another one, and a bunch of methods from the recent PACE challenge. The PACE challenge is an annual competition for parameterized algorithms. There are a number of heuristic methods for computing tree depth. So the simplest of which is derived from the depth first search algorithm. There are a bunch of separator based methods, and then again algorithms from the recent PACE challenge. So if you analyze the efficiency versus the optimality of the existing methods, the exact methods are quite high on optimality, but can only scale up to a small number of vertices, whereas the heuristic methods are quite scalable but lack in optimality. And our algorithm, which is slim, SAT-based local improvement method, slots in somewhere in between. Finally, a quick preview of the results. Here are a couple of instances from the PACE challenge, and our algorithm starts with a heuristic decomposition provided by DFS and improves on that. So we analyze the starting tree depth, the final tree depth, and the relative improvement expressed as a percentage of the starting tree depth. So here are the numbers, and as you can see, they look quite positive. And on average, over all the 200 or so instances, the relative improvement is around 52%. Further, our algorithm was able to provide a better tree depth than all the 55 participating PACE solvers for 3 of these instances.
Hi, my name is Johannes. I'm excited to present our paper, A Time Leap Challenge for Set Solving, which is joint work with Marcus and Stefan from Vienna. In our paper, we carried out a bit of an unusual research direction. We compared the impact of hardware and algorithm advancements for set solving over the last 2 decades. Let's right jump into the outline of our work. We took set solvers from about 20 years ago and modern set solvers. We prepared modern computer hardware and hardware from about 20 years ago. Then we compare the 20-year-old set solvers on new hardware with modern set solvers on the 20-year-old hardware. Why would that even be interesting? While the last 2 decades have brought enormous technological progress and innovation in the area of combinatorial constraint solving, the 2 main factors are massive hardware advancement and algorithm advancement. But when we look at the well-known Moore's law, one might be tempted to overlook the huge progress made on the algorithmic side. Inspired by a thought experiment on algorithms in mixed integer linear programming that Sebastian Stiller suggested in his popular science book Planet of Algorithms, we figured that it would be a nice challenge to design an actual experiment to compare the advancement in combinatorial solving. Since the field is quite diverse, we picked the famous SAT problem. We based the general setup of the comparison experiment on a time leap challenge, where virtual teams compete. Team hardware uses old solvers on new hardware. Team software uses new solvers on old hardware. The time between old and new spans about 2 decades. Which team can solve more instances? Depending on the outcome, one can compare the impact of hardware and algorithm advancements. For those of you who are too busy to wait for the end of the talk, take a quick look on the outcome of our experiment. Unsurprisingly, modern solvers have a strong influence on the performance of solvers, but the solving also significantly profits from technological advancement in hardware development.
I am Janne Kokkola. This is joint work with Jakob Nordström, who leads the MEAO research group in University of Copenhagen and Lund University. So here is an example instance of the SAT problem. We have a Boolean expression in the CNF form where we have a bunch of clauses, and the question is whether we can assign values to the variables so that each clause is satisfied. The problem is NP-complete, and this formulation might sound a bit unnatural, but it actually is often a useful approach because so-called conflict-driven clause learning solvers are just amazingly fast in many real-life instances. The idea behind the dominant CDCL paradigm is that the solver derives or learns new clauses until it finds a satisfying assignment or reaches a contradiction. And one great feature of many CDCL solvers is that in case of negative result, these learned clauses actually give a proof of unsatisfiability, which can then be used to verify the result. So why are CDCL solvers so good then? The state-of-the-art solvers use many fine-tuned heuristics which are crucial for performance. Some of these important heuristics are, for example, how to manage the clause database, as keeping too many clauses in memory would slow down the solver too much. Also, it seems that to perform well, the solver needs to restart the search every now and then. One possible way is to just go with a fine-tuned static restart schedule where the search restarts at predetermined points of time. And another approach is to use adaptive restarts where the solver restarts when it seems to be producing bad clauses. So in state-of-the-art solvers, these heuristics do work well in practice, but there is surprisingly little rigorous scientific understanding of why they work. Why are certain heuristics so good? In this work, we seek some understanding by looking at the proof of unsatisfiability to determine what part of the work the solver does actually contributes to the proof. So what do we learn? First, if we were able to keep more clauses in memory, it would help the solver focus the search on the proof, but it would not actually make the actual proof shorter. For a static restart schedule, more frequent restarts seem to actually improve the reasoning power of the solver, which means that the proofs also do get shorter. And from these proofs, we find evidence that adaptive restarts indeed help the solver avoid useless work. Some of the main heuristics that solvers use to determine which clauses to keep in memory are LBD, which is kind of a locality measure, and activity, which measures how much the solver uses the clause. And we find evidence that these are indeed good predictors of whether the clause contributes to the proof.
Hello everyone, I'm Loïc Rouquette. I'm a PhD student at Int'l. Today I will speak about the work done with my PhD advisor, Christine Solnant. We are working on a project dedicated to cryptanalysis on symmetric ciphers, and our goal is to improve the scalability of CP solvers. On this paper, the main attacks are the differential attack and the relay key attack. They were introduced respectively in 1991 by Biam and Shamir, and in 1994 by Bial. The aim is to compute the maximum differential characteristic. The basic idea is to analyze what is the impact of a modification of an input on the output. Here we have a cipher function f that transforms a plaintext A in a ciphertext A with a Ka. The plaintext, the K, and the ciphertext are binary sequences. Now we choose another K and another plaintext. The cipher function transforms the new plaintext with the new K into a new ciphertext. We compute the differences between the inputs with the bitwise XOR operator. The bitwise XOR operator is defined with the following truth table. The result is 1 if the two inputs are different. On the same way, we compute the differences between the two Ks and the differences between the two ciphertexts. Since cipher algorithms contain nonlinear subfunctions called S-boxes, the probability to observe the output difference given the input difference is non-uniform. Our goal is to find the differences in the input and the differences in the output that maximize the probability to appear. Computing the maximum differential characteristic is expensive. To counter this drawback, Knudsen introduces in 1995 the notion of truncated differential. The idea is to cut the bits in sequence of size k. Usually k equals 8, and we cut the bits in bytes. Each byte is abstracted by a boolean that indicates if the differential byte contains at least one non-null bit. The maximum differential characteristic is now computed in two steps. In the first step, we enumerate all the abstract solutions that activate the less S-boxes as possible. In the second step, for each abstract solution, we compute all the concrete solutions, what are the full binary sequences, and we look for the sequence that has the maximum probability. To be able to work on this abstraction, it's necessary to define the abstraction of some operators. As the bitwise XOR operator is widely used in cipher processes, we are working to improve it.